Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Jeremy Smith. Last time guys we talked about the new Sony a6300 and I'm still going to be doing another video about that camera very soon that's going to be dedicated to its video-centric features. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be talking about Canon's new 80D. Now mid-range DSLRs hold a special place in my heart. Whenever I started with my first DSLR about 10 years ago, my very first one was the Nikon D80. And at the time, that camera was very, very awesome. The cool thing is, when it comes to mid-range DSLRs, in terms of their main feature set, they haven't changed a whole lot. Now, a lot of people just starting out in photography get a little bit intimidated by mid-range DSLRs, but the cool thing is, you can put a mid-range DSLR on automatic, and it will do everything for you, just like an entry-level one will. But as you get more advanced, the mid-range camera, you won't find yourself outgrowing it nearly as much as you do on like an entry-level camera where you can't change all your settings without going to menus and such. The other thing about mid-range DSLRs is that a lot of people that are more advanced users, professionals even, will oftentimes use a mid-range DSLR as their secondary camera. So a mid-range DSLR covers a lot of, covers a very, very wide range of users. And because of that, the competition in this space is very, very fierce. Now, back when Canon came out with the 70D, let's see, around 2013, I did a little bit of a video comparison between the 70D and Nikon's current camera at the time, the D7100. Now, the Canon did a lot better with video thanks to its dual pixel AF technology. You had very, very fast and silent autofocusing. The Nikon did better, and let's see here. Oh yeah, the Canon also did much better in terms of like action shooting. Its buffer was much better and such. The Nikon, its strong suit was the fact that it could shoot at very low ISO and produce a lot of dynamic range. So it was very, very good for people that wanted to do portraits or landscapes, things along those lines. The buffer was pathetic on it though. You can only do about 6 RAW files in a burst before the buffer filled. And the Nikon didn't have some features that the Canon did, like the built-in Wi-Fi, for example. Flash forward a little bit after that, Nikon came out with the D7200, and they improved the buffer capability a lot. The 7200 has got about 3 times the buffer of the 7100. They also added Wi-Fi. With this new 80D though, Canon is kind of doing the same thing that Nikon did when they went from 7100 to 7200. They're kind of filling in some gaps and improving in areas where they need to. So on this new 80D, the biggest thing that I see as an improvement is how the camera handles base ISO shooting. Now, I did a quick series of test photos that I'll post a link to for you guys to take a look at. And maybe later on, I'll go ahead and give you guys a little link for the RAW files as well. But I did a quick test, my standard kind of kitchen pantry test, and I started at the base ISO and went all the way up. And what I discovered is that at base ISO, this camera produces a lot more detail in the shadows than any previous Canon that I've seen. So Canon is obviously wanting to get more Nikon-like in that area. I started at ISO 100. I raised the ISO up quite a bit. The shadows look very, very clean. So very huge improvement there. Canon also has added a headphone jack to this camera for video, for video shooting and such. The other thing is, they do continue to improve on their autofocus system. The 70D had a 19-point autofocus system. This camera uses a 45-point. Is that right? 45-point. Sorry guys, all the autofocus point numbers are so strange now. I have to look. But yes, it has a 45-point autofocus system now. Every single point is cross-typed, so it's very, very sensitive. Now, I have heard some people say that it doesn't track as well as the older systems did. I'm not really an action photographer, but perhaps in a future video I will be doing a little bit of an action test between a lot of the current cameras like this 80D and the Nikon D500 and A6300. So be on the lookout for that. This camera also now gives us the ability to do 1080p at 60 frames per second. Now, some people were really looking forward to 4K, and honestly, I was kind of thinking that we may see 4K, especially since Canon has been known for kind of driving the video market, or at least starting it. But it looks like Canon is kind of playing catch up in this area, which is perfectly fine. 60 frames a second at 1080p would certainly fit my needs. Obviously, if you need, if you need 4K or if you need higher frame rates, something like the A6300 that we looked at recently would also be a very, very good choice for doing that sort of thing. Mid-range DSLRs, though, how can I say this in a nice way? Well, mid-range DSLRs in terms of just still photographs, they definitely beat the mirrorless toys as far as I'm concerned. There's no rubbish electronic viewfinder to put up with, and you actually have appropriate controls to use whenever you're shooting manual settings and such. So, yeah, I guess that's how I say that. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the camera. Taking a closer look at the camera, it looks very, very much like the 70D, very similar in the way it's designed. One big thing you guys will notice is that this is a different lens. It's still an 18-135. Canon, though, they have come out with a new version of it that has something called Nano USM now. So basically, it promises much, much faster autofocusing than the STEM lenses, but also it will still remain silent in the way it focuses. So pretty cool there. On the bottom of this lens, it has a little contact area. Canon, they've come out with a little power dock type thing. Not really sure what to call it. But basically, it allows you to have power zoom capability. You just attach it to the bottom of the lens, and then you can have this camera behave truly the way a camcorder would. Now, one thing I noticed about this thing is that, I was thinking that it was going to be a lot more expensive. It's about $150, which I feel is pretty reasonable. It does seem to be powered by AA batteries, though, which, I don't know, I find that to be kind of strange. I mean, I suppose for some users it won't be an issue, but I personally think it would have been a lot more convenient if it were just powered off an LP6 battery that the camera uses. Whenever I get my hands on one of those, I'll kind of show you how it works as well. Ergonomically, this camera is pretty much the same as what we have with something like the 70D. And this is something, as a stills camera, a mid-range DSLR is going to be much, much better than something like the A6300, in my opinion. I talked to you guys a little bit about the ergonomics of that camera and how I felt they were terrible. And yeah, I think that a lot of the mirrorless cameras have ergonomics that seem to be designed for a child as opposed to an actual working photographer, but that's another story. This camera, if you look at its video capabilities here, the A6300 definitely owned it in that area. And as I mentioned, we will test the A6300 in more video scenarios. Let's see. It's a little thing on Canon. You actually have to be over in that mode, I believe, to get the video options here. Actually, you know what? Looks like in this one you don't. Oh, no. Okay. You still do. So yeah, you actually won't see the video options unless you are in video mode there. Anyways, so looking at these video options though, you can see that we have the ability to do up to 60 frames a second now, even if we are doing 1080p. So that's something that's a nice addition. The Sony A6300 can do up to 120 frames in 1080p, and of course it can do 4K, so it definitely has some advantages there. In terms of still photography though, these mid-range type DSLRs are still much better in my opinion because of controls. Also, you have battery life that doesn't last for just 2 photographs. And you also, have much better ergonomics and such. And of course, you have a real viewfinder to use. So, a lot of advantages there. Over on the side of this camera, we have a microphone jack and a headphone jack. The headphone jack being the new addition, so very nice to see it there. We have NFC capabilities, and the NFC chip is on the side of the camera, not on the bottom, like on some of the Rebels, like the T6i and T6s. Kind of disappointed that we don't see 2 card slots. We still have a single SD slot here. So, for some users, it might be a big deal. For others, it may not be. For me, I love to shoot back up to 2 cards whenever I'm doing weddings and such like that. So I do miss the fact that it doesn't have 2 card slots, but for some users it may not be a big deal. Same type of tilting screen on this, so that's very nice. Hopefully Nikon will add that to a future D7300 or whatever they decide to call it. So we do have the tilting screen here, and of course it is a touch screen. And you can change things back here. I find the touch screen to be most useful, of course, whenever you're shooting video, because you can do the whole tap to focus thing and have it focus on different areas. So works out very, very well there. Be sure to take a look at the description to see the samples on this from this camera. And if you have any questions, let me know. A lot of people were talking to me in the comments about the Sony a6300. They want to see how it does more with video. So I will be producing that video soon to show everyone. On this camera, same thing goes. If there's something you want to see on this camera that I should cover more in a future video, just let me know and I will see what I can do. Be sure to check me out on Instagram and Twitter. I've also recently been doing a lot of Periscope videos, and I wish I could come up with some sort of schedule, but unfortunately, the way things happen for me, things end up being very spontaneous. So recently, I shared some Nikon D5 high ISO samples on Periscope. So, anyways, be sure to check me out there because you never know when I might decide to broadcast something. Also, if you would like to purchase a Canon 80D, I have a link in the description below for that as well. So if you guys are looking at this, you think it's the one, check out that link. Until next time, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is Jeremy Smith, signing off.